Hello everyone! In this video we're going to walk through a recent grease pencil project that I've been working on. This year I was given the opportunity to enroll in a 2D animation course at an animation college called Yoobee. Ever since I started animating, I've learnt predominantly from courses and tutorials here on YouTube. So I found this new experience really valuable. The brief of this course was to create an advert for a video game. I chose a game that I had made as a prototype a while ago. Essentially, you play as either a knight, archer, or wizard, fighting off skeletons and wolves. I even made the beginnings of a boss fight. We had the opportunity to choose a variety of different animation tools, and I decided to go with blended grease pencil because I wanted to accomplish a lot in a relatively short time. Before we get into the overview, I'd like to show off the animatic that I created. And if you hang around until the end of the video, you'll see how it all turned out. Just quickly before getting into the production, I'd like to talk about this template that helped me create each scene and keep everything consistent. With the drawing window on the left, we have a movie clip editor in the top right, which allows us to always see the animatic. And similarly, we've got an image editor that lets us see any reference images. In this case, we've got some character turnarounds. In the first real scene, we introduce the viewer into this world that the game takes place in. Then we see the first character, which is a skeleton, the main enemy of the game. I chose to make this using frame-by-frame animation because I would usually use rigged animation, but I wanted to push myself. After this, the main character, the knight, comes in and swings his sword, scattering the bones. If we have a look at this from another perspective, we see the depth in the scene, and I would like to point out that the object for the knight character moves through the scene. This allows us to create a simple or even looping animation, and then just move the object. This then quickly turns to the next scene, showing the knight running along the ground, and fighting two more skeletons. Let's have a look at this rig. The majority of this rig is fairly standard when compared to my normal process, but for this project, I wanted to try a method of rigging that was faster, looser, and allowed for some integration of frame-by-frame animation. To do this, I separated the arms into their own object and attached it to the rig via an empty object, and then used another empty for the arms to target using a damped track constraint. This method was great for creating this project really quickly. Because this is such a short video, I think that creating a robust rig made to be used many times wouldn't be the best use of time. Equally, spending the time to create the entire project using frame-by-frame animation wasn't an option either. So this hybrid method allows us to decide what would be faster to rig and what would be faster to create frame-by-frame. This scene then ends with another skeleton running into frame, which will be relevant in the next few scenes. This is just a simple rig with a looping running animation. Then it just slides into shot. This next scene is one of the simpler scenes, but it's definitely my favorite. It's just an arrow flying through the air, but there's a lot to unpack here. I created this arrow by modeling a 3D version, animated so that it spins. Then I trace this 3D arrow every couple of frames. This looks a bit weird from any other perspective, but otherwise using 3D as reference allowed me to quickly create this scene while keeping a consistent style. Initially this was as far as I was going to go, but I thought that I could make it feel more alive. So under the effects tab I added a wave effect. This makes the arrow deform as it flies through the air. It's subtle, but I think it makes it so much better. Finally, I animated it moving around a bit to add some interest. Next, I want to talk about this speed line shader. I made something similar for the previous scene. Essentially, I use a bunch of different noise textures stretched along a cylinder. This is put through some color ramp nodes to compress their values and change the colors. This then goes through an emission shader to create this glow effect. Finally, I used a shape key to make the cylinder grow. There's a little more that went into this effect, but that should give you the general idea. Okay, moving on to the next scene, we start out by seeing the same skeleton that was running along before, being hit by the arrow. In this scene, I chose to animate him frame by frame, and I'm really proud of this. To make this, I created several iterations of the animation. I started out with this rough sketch. At this point, I wanted to focus more on the movement rather than the volume or drawing. In the next pass, I'm able to add some volume to the drawing using simple shapes like cylinders. Finally, in the last phase, I create some finished line work, focusing on shape design. After finishing up with color, I think that the finished result is a little stiffer than it was in the sketch, but that is what I'm trying to improve here, and the more I animate in this method, the better I will become. After this, the camera pans up to the archer. The way I animated this is interesting. It's based on the hybrid rigging and frame by frame approach that I took earlier, but taken to an extreme. Essentially, it's a really simple rig, but instead of using an armature, I chose to just parent the different objects together. This is a lot quicker and simpler to understand, but I think I took this simplified method too far in this instance. I think that this section is too stiff when compared to the rest of the animation, especially since this is one of the 2 times that the archer is seen in this animation. Moving on, we are introduced to the final character, a wizard. Though I never implemented him into the prototype of the game, he was always intended to be included, and I even created the artwork. So, he rises up and shoots a fireball from his staff. I followed the same procedure as for the skeleton. One thing I did differently was in the final version, I had the arm that holds the staff separated onto its own layer, because when he rises, the arm settles when the rest of the body is still. This meant that separating the animation of these 2 sections saved some time. For the fireball itself, I used a few different materials, but it still looks a bit dull. I was able to use some different effects and modifiers to make it a lot better in the final result. This fireball then runs into the wall of the castle that was seen in the first scene. This then causes an explosion that hides the transition between this scene and the final one. I animated this explosion frame by frame, however I only drew every few frames, meaning it looked a little jumpy on its own. So to fix this, I duplicated the explosion around a bit and offset the animation of each instance. Another thing that I wanted to mention is the blur effect that I added. This gives the effect that the rubble is flying off in one direction. Once I was happy with how the explosion looked, I exported it as an image sequence with a transparent background. I was then able to use this in editing to hide the transition from the last scene and the next. Speaking of which, this scene takes the fast-paced action and calms down before the end, showing all of the characters standing in a heroic pose. This is just some simple drawings placed at different depths in the scene. I really enjoyed participating in this course, and I'm proud of the product that I created and the skills that I learned. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will leave you with the final product. Enjoy.